Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Coaching. My name is Britz, international leadership coach, trainer and facilitator, and host of the Lunchtime series where we add value to people's lives happening every day at 12 on ebizradio.com. So back with us to add to some really kick-off or kick-ass kind of 2021 plans. We've got Angela Hardy, personal transformation specialist. How are you, Angela?
I'm so well, thank you, Kevin. How are you?
Good, good, good. I'm so glad that we could catch up and chat some more. You and I have just come off Facebook Live, which I'll be sharing online as well. So been a really awesome conversation. But when we started this conversation, you mentioned that we're going to talk about a specific topic, and I think it's such a good entry point. But I'm gonna pose some questions to you because I think a lot of people get this wrong so often. But first, tell everybody who you are, more about you, and what we're going to talk about today.
So I am a transformation specialist, and what that means is that I teach people how to love themselves and to have self-worth and self-esteem and self-confidence, and to have a more free, more exciting, more present, more joyful experience of their lives. And I do that all using various techniques, kinesiology, principles-based training, NLP, all sorts of stuff. But most importantly, I just help people to change their minds and their experiences.
Fantastic. And so, I mean, today's topic, and I think it's a good sort of entry point, and we're still in the beginning of the year, so I think a lot of small businesses, a lot of individuals are starting to ask themselves on, and I think, tell me what your thoughts are on this point. COVID in itself have really started pushing the point and the button on what are we doing with our lives, and like what do we want to achieve, and how do we do that, and how we measure that. And that's sort of part of what we're going to be talking about today. Do you think that's such a relevant point?
I think it's actually always relevant, because what I find interesting about life is that when I have a clear vision of where I'm going and what it is that I'm looking to achieve, it's much easier for me to make decisions. It's much easier for me to move forward. It's much easier for me to know what I'm going to do next. And also that clear vision has the potential to give me real motivation and impetus and a sense of kind of drive and excitement and adventure in my life. So setting those ideals and those ideas up is really important. But I've also found that we can trip ourselves up quite badly with it.
Yeah.
And I've been known to do that in my life. And so for me, it's quite an interesting subject. You know, people talk about goal setting and how you must set these goals, and they need to be SMART goals, and there's got to be time, and they're going to be achievable, and they're going to be measurable, and blah, 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 blah. And then they go into all of this methodology of how to go about setting a goal that will allow you to have all of this. And what happens is that for one sharp little moment, you have this very exciting feeling about where you're going next. Yeah. And then what often happens as a result of that is that suddenly you feel like you're not there yet. And you feel a bit scared about not getting there. And you feel a bit freaked out about who you are if you're not going to get there. Or how you're showing up, and what people are going to think of you, and how they're going to judge you, and how bad you are if you're not getting there. And so the pressure starts. And if this internal pressure starts to feel stressful and anxiety-making and fearful of failure and self-judgmental and hard, then actually that setting of that goal has hurt you instead of helped you. Yeah. And to me, it's such an interesting subject, because I really think that we have to get the balance right in order to really have this idea or this vision of going somewhere help us to do something wonderful, have a great adventure of life.
So in terms of, I mean, 2021 is here. We're busy setting ourselves up to, what's up for grabs in this here. But essentially, do you think it's goal setting, or because I know just before we started, you said there's a difference between goal setting and measuring your success, and I like the way that you use that, because in my head, I've often set goals and really failed hopelessly at them, and kind of like, okay, well, I don't want to do goals anymore because I'm not reaching. Right?
This is the warning of goal setting, yeah.
And then you kind of go, okay, well, what's the point of goal setting? Because I never get exactly what I want, and it's not, I'm not reaching it. So I mean, what do we do? How do we fix this? What's the plan? What's an option?
Well, I think that if COVID's taught us anything, it's taught us that we need to be flexible and we need to be accepting of what is in life, and we need to have need to have a certain kind of mobility in the way that we deal with things.
Yeah.
And this is where traditional goal setting, I think, really falls down, because we stick our thumbs into our mouths and we go, you know what it is that we're going to do? We're going to make a 20% growth this year. And then this is how exactly we're going to do it, right? And then this is who's going to be involved in this, that, and the next thing, or whatever the case may be. And then the pressure is on to do it in that way and to have that result and to have that outcome at that time in a certain kind of way. And I think that that's a big problem. But I do know that having a vision for the future, or having an idea of what lights our fire, is a great way to go about it. So I would say that what we need to do is have more of an idea of, when I sit and I think about something, does it excite me?
Mm.
And this is actually, I don't know if you know Martha Beck, if you've ever studied any of her work or had a look at any of her books.
Do you know her? Yeah.
Yeah, she's an excellent coach, and she talks about this idea of, when I think about doing something, what does it feel like in my body?
Mm.
And our body is a very, very clear yes or no indicator. It's like this dialing rod for yes and no. And it is so clear. And what do? We say, well, okay, I want to set this goal. I think it's the right thing to do. I think economically it can be viable. I think that it will show me up in the light that I want to be shown. I think it will do the right thing for me. But our body doesn't necessarily go, oh, that sounds so exciting, I can't wait to do that. And in fact, quite a lot of the time, it's like, oh, it sounds like it totally sucks, but I guess I'm going to make a living.
Yeah.
And then we start to, place this pressure on ourselves. So I think the first thing that we have to do when we start to think about a vision for what it is we want to do is we have to play with ideas and see whether they excite us. And that is not to play with an idea so hard and so strategically that we know exactly how it's going to come off, but just to have an idea in our mind. What would it be like? I know that you've been a singer in your past. What would it be like for you to sing to 1,000 people on a huge stage with the lights and the crowds roaring? And if that makes your body go, oh, yes, then you know what to say yes to.
Yeah.
And if that makes you go, hell no, then you know what to say no to. And you'd only have to go that far to know singing on the stage sounds like a fabulous idea, or it sounds like a terrible idea to me.
So the immediate question that I have on that point is, I mean, I know the answer, but I want you to sort of share, because I know people out there kind of go, yeah, but isn't that just me going like, face your fears, you like have to get over yourself, or how do I get to the point where when I start actually recognizing that feeling, that state, that movement, that energy that I've got inside, and kind of acknowledging that it's there, it's real, it's existent, it's in existence, and that it's a beacon of sorts. And how do I? Because people very often, I mean, are guilty of that, of speaking your way into a negative situation. You kind of go, no, well, it's supposed to work, it should work. I mean, it works on paper. But your body's going, no, I don't care. This is a bad idea. Stop doing it. And then you invariably, I've made business decisions that have just turned out really badly based on the fact that I ignored that no indicator that kept coming up. Where today I'm completely, opposite. I literally go, what is my body saying about this? What am I feeling about it?
Well, I think that the first thing that you have to recognize is that we think that we're working from our brains. We think that we're working from our mind, and that the conversation that we have in our mind that we can hear is the only knowledge that we have, that is our experience of life. And that is not what's going on here. So as you start to recognize that maybe 10% of everything that's going on is this conversation that you're having between your ears, and everything else that's going on is everything else, like 90% of life is going on some other place in your mind, and you're not hearing it in words.
Yeah.
Then you would say, wow, actually, there's a lot of information to access here about what's good or bad for me, what's right or wrong for me, what passionately excites me, what would make me feel good about life. That is not this chatter.
Yeah.
And some people might call it like a sense of wisdom, or a higher consciousness, or access to the greater wisdom of life. There's a lot of stuff that we
Yeah.
can't talk in words.
Yeah.
And so we listen to our bodies because the body is able to access that part of the brain. The body is very much connected to that part of the brain via the spinal cord, via the hypothalamus, producing chemicals, producing emotions, producing feelings, producing energy. It's very connected. It knows what's going on with all of the rest of our understanding. And so wisdom actually is quite interesting because you have much more access to it when you get quiet with the chatter that says this is logical, this is practical, this is what I should be doing. And you listen to the body and the instinct and the little tiny voice of thought that goes punk into your mind in a moment, instead of that like, let me make sense of this voice. Yeah. So strategic planning is all well and good, but we should be learning to listen to our bodies. And it's actually very easy to listen to your body because it speaks very clearly. So if I were to ask you in this moment to think about something that makes you very happy, and you imagined yourself engaged in that thing and doing that thing, you would notice a feeling in your body, particularly in your torso area. And most people describe that feeling. You throw your words in as we go, Kevin, as open.
You know, as you asked that question, I was like, okay, so what makes me happy instinctively? And I'm going, my daughter and Eugene. I'm like, my fiance. I'm like, that's a good, like a clear indication. Yeah.
So when you think about your daughter, and let's say you're going to do something with your daughter, the best thing that you do together, the thing you love doing most of all, what would that be?
Singing loudly in the car. So when we drive,
love it.
We have those moments of like passionate singing out loud.
Love it. Okay, I love that. So now imagine that you're singing loudly in the car to your favorite pop song, you and your daughter, and tell me what that feels like for you.
Oh, wow. It feels like immediately connection. So it's a sort of connection I have with her. There's closeness that I have with her, that she has moments like that she doesn't have with anyone else. Mm-hmm. So it feels almost intimate, and I'm like building a relationship with her. Like it's like beautiful.
So there's love there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like that core connection. It's so it's like, yeah, it's almost in my head tangible. You can almost feel the love that we have.
And on a physical level in your body itself, what are you feeling?
Physical level, really excitable, like really light and full of life and laughing and quite silly almost, joyous, childlike energy. Yeah.
So I want you to notice as Kevin talks about this, how he does this, it feels really light and very joyful and very exciting. And that body is the body language that is saying, take me towards this thing. Take me towards this thing. And that's what our body does when we feel excited about something. So it feels light, not heavy. It feels expansive, not contractive. Does it feel effervescent, or does it feel flat?
No, it's pretty effervescent, yeah.
Feels very effervescent. So there's lightness, there's expansiveness, there's energy there, and it feels very effervescent towards. Okay. And would there be a color if you think about
it? Yeah, it would be the color of light blue, like a light blue, like a gentle light blueness. Yeah.
All right. And so that for Kevin might be associated with the love for his daughter and always connection with people, or, you know, we'll see as we go along. So you've got all of this feeling inside of your body, and that feeling inside of your body is saying, yes, yes, hell yes.
Yeah.
Now think about something that you just, if I said to you, come, Kev, let's do this right now, you'd be like, you know what, just shoot me in the eye, I'd rather not. Think about something like that. What would that be?
Washing dishes.
Okay, washing the dishes. Let's go wash the dishes, Kev. Okay, picture yourself washing the dishes.
And I know it sounds like so odd, but I have very negative experiences with my mother telling me to wash dishes. So I would iron, I would vacuum, I would wash the curtains, I would wash windows, I would do anything but wash dishes.
It's official. Dishes is the subject. Okay, so imagine washing the dishes and tell me what it feels like in your body.
No, it feels, I'm irritated. I don't want to be there. I feel like I feel annoyed immediately. Like if someone says, like, please wash the dishes, and I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to.
Does it feel heavy or light?
Heavy, 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 heavy.
Does it feel open or closed?
Closed.
So it's contracting, not expanding.
Yeah, it's completely like, yeah.
Does it feel effervescent or solid?
Solid.
What color does it have?
Dark, dirty brown.
The common color of sludge. I don't want to do this. Okay, and then what does your energy feel like when you think about doing it?
I know. I get like, yeah, it's annoyed. I'm like annoyed, and I don't want to be there. Like, if I think about dishes, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. Like,
so there's all of this information that says to Kevin, do not take a job as a dishwasher.
Yeah.
And there's all of this information that says to Kevin, feel free to take a job as an Uber driver with a lot of loud music and trying to let to sing in the car with you.
Yeah.
There was an Uber guy that went viral, you know that, who used to sing with his clients.
Can you imagine? Yeah, let's go drive around and sing for people. Like, that'd be fun.
Yeah, what a win. You'd be like the most sought after Uber driver ever.
Exactly. But now bring that back. So, like, if that's the case, so people are kind of going, "Oh my goodness, yeah." Like, I totally get that, but you know what makes me feel light blue and airy and like effervescent is not the thing that I can. You know, I'm never going to be able to reach that. How do we tap into bringing the goal and the measurement of where we're going in that successful place to that feeling and sort of tapping it into where we're going or where we want to be?
Okay, so let's get a little bit more schwa here.
Yeah.
And let me say that we are the authors of our lives. It doesn't always feel like that, but the truth of the matter is that in little baby by little baby step, we get to make these decisions about what we're going to do and where we're going to go and what we're going to choose for ourselves. And if we know what turns us on and makes us feel excited and brilliant and lovely and what turns us off, then there's all sorts of these factors that help us to say, here is a job offer on the table. When I imagine myself doing this job and I see what the criteria of this job are, if I picture myself doing this criteria, does it make me feel effervescent and happy, or does it make me feel like I'd rather, slap myself across the back of the head and pass out?
Yeah.
And does this aspect make me feel like that? And does this aspect? So I'm not even talking about like self-employment where you just, well, theoretically, for those who have never been self-employed, think that you get to choose what you get to do in your day. Suckers. No, that doesn't happen. But I am talking about designing your life in a way that you start to design the aspects of your life that you do more of what you love. And you eat less of what Elizabeth, what's her name, calls the shit sandwich. What's her name?
I'm not sure.
The one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, yes. I can't think of it now, yeah. I'll Google it.
Right, so she says all work has a shit sandwich and everyone's going to have to eat the shit sandwich in the day. You just got to decide how you eat it. So that's true. I mean, it's true for everybody. But can you find work that is more about what you love and less about the shit sandwich? So now that's the first step.
Elizabeth,
and so this is long-term goal planning. We're talking about creating your life. And so you might not be able to do it today and you might not be able to do it this year. And there might be more restrictions in COVID that makes it more difficult to do. But with everything that you say yes to, is it something that you said logically, like Kevin was saying earlier, I've said yes to business decisions that actually didn't work for me at all. They were terrible decisions. Are you saying yes to something that your logic has convinced you have to say yes to, or your expectations of society has convinced you, or the amount of money that you're going to earn has convinced you, and your logic has said, oh, I really should do that. But actually the feeling inside was like, oh, I don't like it, I don't want it. Or are you saying yes to the things that make you feel excited? And so in terms of designing your life, this is a really, really good way of measuring what to say yes to and what to say no to.
So here's a question. So I'm excited about a new possibility, a new project, or a new job opportunity or whatever. But I get really nervous.
Thank you for asking. You're like the master leader right here.
I'm gonna go.
Now we need to know the difference between a no and fear.
Yes.
And often fear feels like a no to us because it's such an uncomfortable feeling in our body. So with Kevin, let's do the exercise. Think about something.
Alarm bells. You kind of go, I'm so excited, and then you go, no, but hang on. What about this? And what about this? And what if that doesn't work? And there's all of that sort of starts playing out. Yeah.
All right. So I want you to know the difference between no and fear first off.
Yeah.
Okay. So think about something that makes you really scared, but you would love to do, or you do love to do, but actually gives you fear. Can you find something like that? Like maybe you were going to jump off Blobergstrand, what that huge bridge in.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So now I want you to imagine yourself doing that and see where the fear sits in your body. Where is the sensation of fear?
Stomach, around like stomach area.
So is that the same place or lower than where you felt excitement?
Not the same place, no.
Because excitement was more here, wasn't it?
Yeah, so excitement was chest and neck and mouth and head. Yeah.
You do this with excitement, but your stomach gets to stay behind because it's in a ball of fear.
Yes.
So firstly, fear actually feels like it's in a slightly different place.
Yeah.
It feels like butterflies. This is the vagus nerve doing its thing. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to have to like gird the loins for action in a way because we're a bit scared of something. So the identification of fear, you can still feel yes and fear at the same time. And did you feel that with that? When you felt that, could you feel them both at the same time?
Yeah, you could, yeah. It's a joint kind of feeling.
Yeah, it's a joint feeling, but actually there is a sort of a kind of a sense that you could separate them or identify them at least as separate, as both present.
Yeah.
So when you feel yes with fear, that is not a no.
Ah, okay.
That's
kind of a no. No is kind of like why am I doing this? Stop doing this. What are you doing? Why are we doing this?
No is this. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yes and fear is this. Like the butterfly doing in the stomach, but the chest is going, okay, we're doing it. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is that there's some people grow up and do a lot of things that make them afraid in their lives. And those people are very used to the feeling of fear. And it doesn't mean that the feeling of fear goes away for them. It's just that they know that that is not a no. Yes. And so they say, okay, fear, let's go. And so this is what I like to do. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. It's very exciting. Okay. And then fear goes, really? And I'm like, yes, I'm really, really. And then fear says to me, Ange, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Okay. There's some sort of social death or some sort of death by public speaking or some sort of death by failure or some sort of, you know what I mean? You're going to die. You're going to fail. You're going to die. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And I say to fear, yeah, whatever, let's go.
Yeah.
And fear says, listen, I just die. And I'm like, yeah, never mind that, let's go. And fear says, whoa, chickie, are you not paying attention? These are all the many, many, many things that can go wrong. And I'm like, yeah, stop talking, let's go, come.
Yeah.
And then fear, we go. Because I just say, let's go. And fear's like, no, you're going to die. I'm like, let's go. And then eventually we go and we start doing it. So you do that speech in front of 1,000 people, or you sing in front of 1,000 people, or you do whatever it is that's so scary, but you have the expansive feeling for. And as you get started, fear's like, you're going to die. And then at some point, fear goes, oh, this chick never bloody listens.
Yes.
I'm just going to have a nap.
Yeah.
And then you stop feeling it halfway through. Have you noticed that? It just...
Yeah, and then it turns into euphoria. So you go through that oh my goodness, and then it turns to like, wow, I'm doing this. This is great. I can do this. I'm doing it. Right. Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah.
So actually we don't listen to that fear, because fear is going to tell us a story about how terrible it's all going to be. And if we pay too much attention, then we've got a problem. But when it comes to goal setting, okay, that's just the doing, right? But when it comes to goal setting, of course, we have to have the balance of strategic planning and risk analysis, and do you know what I mean? We've got to make sense of our lives. So there is going to be you want to do this, but what about this? And what about that? And what about that? Well, the thing that we don't want to lose track of the yes feeling in the conversation about how.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because the conversation of how is simply a practical methodology to find some way to get my life to this yes place. And we are infinitely creative, and we're amazingly inventive, and there's all sorts of information around us all the time that's telling us what to do. Like when we were talking earlier in the Facebook Live that we were doing, and you said to me, some guy that I knew said, why don't you teach this to call centers?
Yeah.
And there must have been a yes feeling there that said, oh yes, that's a good idea. You didn't even have to come up with a plan on how to go about making your dreams a reality. Somebody else gave you the plan.
Yeah.
The only thing you had to do was go, that feels good to me, and then have courage to pursue it. And how do I go about it? Well, let me find a way.
I just want to add to a personal experience that, lends itself to what you're saying around the yes. Even in the moments that I made those business decisions and I realized that I was doing it against what I was feeling in a big way, tracked down a couple of years later, the business decisions at that moment the people that were involved actually called me back and apologized based on the fact that they, in that moment, were going, doing their own thing. And I, in my head, kind of went, I don't want to do this, and left based on my feeling. And tracking down a few years later, they phoned back and apologized because they were wrong, right? Wow. So, it was sort of solidifies exactly what you're saying about really that yes conversation, that if it's not an absolute yes, and that it's yes, and it's a yes, and it's a yes, if you're not following that feeling of that incongruency that you're experiencing, that it's not aligned, there's something off here the whole time, and I now have evidence to go, yeah, well, if you listen to it in the first place, and having someone call back 3 years later going, I must apologize because we were totally wrong. I was wrong about the judgments I made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It just speaks to really starting to tune into how to do this process a little bit better, and actually paying attention to your body and that conversation and what's showing up for us on a regular basis, that we don't tend to make decisions based on the knowledge that we have available.
No, we're making it on our assumptions that look like logic about what's going to happen. Yeah. But actually, we've kind of gone off track because this has been very exciting and fun. But what I did want to tell you about goal setting is that the problem is not that we've set the goal. It's not that we've set a time. It's not that we had an idea. It's that we get very attached to what we think that idea is going to look like.
Yeah.
And then we take ourselves, our sense of ourselves, our worth, our value, who we are in the world, and we attach that to the outcome. And that's actually what I wanted to tell you about originally when we went off on this beautiful track.
Yes.
The problem with the goal setting is not the goal, it's not the time, it's not the flexibility, it's not we sucked something out of our thumb. And then we said to that thing, if you do not arrive in my life in this time that I've sucked out of my thumb, in this way that I've sucked out of my thumb, in this methodology that I've imagined, then I will feel like I am insufficient for this world. And that's where the stress and the pressure and the angst comes from goal setting. So in a way, to set a goal, but also to, in some strange way, have a little bit of detachment that says, I pursue this goal because it feels exciting and it feels motivating and it feels wonderful and feels fabulous for me. And I want to do it for those reasons. But if it fails ethically, I am okay. I've always been okay and I will always be okay. It's not me. This goal is not me. This goal is just an adventure that I've sucked out of my thumb. It's in the sucking of it out of our thumb and then promptly forgetting that we sucked it out of our thumb and thinking that it's some sort of thing that's set in stone that measures us as a human being. That's where the problem lies.
Yeah, so, and I like that earlier you mentioned that the goal itself is just a set of sort of behaviors and things that you can start implementing, and it shouldn't, your identity shouldn't be attached to this. So if you're not getting there, you're completely, you failed at it. And I think that speaks so much to, the way that a lot of goal setting is set up today is, well, if you didn't reach it, it means X, Y, and Z. You know, when it's
About
not
you.
necessarily about you, and eventually, when not necessarily, that's not necessarily the truth, but how you sort of tackle it and your approach in this should really be considered, and what sort of, how do you lend your burning enthusiasm and desire along this process of where it is you want to go. So in summary of today's chat, what do we take away? What is the process? So yes, goal setting is great, but what do we lend to that, and how do we, what's the summary?
Okay, so first and foremost, goal setting is awesome. Don't be so attached to the timeline. Don't be so attached to the outcome. That attachment of self to a doing is a sure and certain way of making you feel less than okay. Doing is just an adventure. You're in this life, you're doing a doing, you're going to earn some money out of it, you're not going to earn some money out of it, it's going to succeed, it's going to fail. That actually is not as relevant as you think it is. What's most relevant is that you can maintain your sense of personal well-being as you do the doing of something. And you actually have very little control of the world. The only thing you have is your energy and your influence to make something happen. Everything else is out of your control. Yeah. So getting attached to an outcome that is 95% out of your control and that you only have maybe 5% energy and influence towards, it's kind of foolish if you look at it like that. Like, why would you get so attached to something that's only going to make you feel less than if it fails, and you're not in control of the whole thing, and you never will be. Yeah. So that's the first thing, is don't get too attached to an outcome. You've sucked it out of your thumb and then you've forgotten that it was just an idea. It wasn't the measurement of you as a human being. And failure, of course, you've heard this a million times. Each little failure is really just a redesign, or a sense of how to change direction to get there, to do it a different way. That's not personal either. You know, school teaches us that it's all personal. That's a big mistake. And then secondly, and the first, most of this conversation, which was so beautiful for me, was about, actually, if I'm going to design my life, and my goal is to have a life that allows me to feel energized and motivated and satisfied and enthusiastic and like just driven to this adventure of being alive and experiencing life, then I really need to be able to listen to the greater wisdom of my body mind and not just my logic mind, and let myself understand, what is my body mind telling me about who I am, what I love, what lights my fire, what aligns me, as Kevin always says, what turns me on. And to know when you're saying yes to something, say yes to those things that make you feel like that, so that incrementally you can keep moving towards and into and have these experiences more and more and more and more as you age, of this life that you've actually designed for yourself by the series of yeses that makes your body go, yeah.
I love it. Angela Hardy, if we want to get hold of you, where do we go? What do we do? How do we connect to you?
You can find my website, www.cloud-9.co.za, and my email address, info@cloud-9.co.za. Or you can Google me, Angela Hardy Cloud 9, and it's really easy to remember. Why? Because Angela is an angel floating on Cloud 9.
Yes.
Never to be forgotten.
Awesome. Angela Hardy, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for joining us on the Lunchtime Coaching. Guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for joining us, and we will chat to you soon.
Thank you, Kevin.
Cheers. Bye.